Valentine's Day, 1998. I remember that day, when I asked you to be my Valentine. That special bond that I felt was going on between us was increasing, and I wanted to take that to the next level. I remember the look on your face, the happiness and excitement of the day we spent together, drained from your face like water running down a plug hole. You said no. I loved you. You know I did. So why would you do this to me? Why? I remember when you walked away into the crowd of lovers. I sat on the bench crying. I walked home on my own. No one was home to comfort me after what you did. I remember waking up and looking at the patterns of my cuts from last night. The blood on the carpet was still there from last night. The writing on my bedroom walls was still there. Why? The writing said, all written in blood. I remember 2 weeks later, I saw you on the street with another man, much younger and better looking than me. The pain just grew and grew. Everything we had done together had just been thrown away by you. Every time we fucked, you told me that you loved me and me only. I remember when I walked down that alley and a gang of thugs mugged me and killed me. I died thinking of you. As the knife plunged into my chest, ending my life, with pain in my heart as the knife dug deeper into me, I could feel the life slipping away. The sheer pain was excruciating. I remember at my funeral, my friends and family were there. My mother was crying, my father was comforting her. I looked around but couldn't find you anywhere. When I died, it wasn't nice. All I could feel was searing pain through my body, as if I was on fire. The pain was excruciating, and I only escaped because I didn't feel complete. I felt I needed something more, and I knew what it was. It was revenge. I don't know how I escaped, but it involved lots of pain. When I got back to Earth, I felt like going straight home to say hey to everyone and say I survived. Then I realized no one could see me, so I just decided to kill the thugs that took away my life. I could still move things, but I was invisible. It was great fun and I enjoyed it so much. The first one I went for ended up face down on the ground with a cracked skull and no scalp. He never knew what hit him. I used the same knife he used to kill me to carve his pretty little eyes out of their sockets. By this time, the 2 other assholes had backed into a corner. I ripped the first one's fingers off with my teeth. After that, I cut his eyes out, holding them in the same hand as the others. I knew what I was going to use them for. I was going to make you a necklace. When the second shuddering in pain on the floor and the third in tears, I felt the rush and became even more violent. I cracked his jaw with the first uppercut and dislodged his head from his body with a second, and as the others, I cut his eyes out with the same knife and kept the eyes and knife for later use. I knew where I had to go next. I was going to his house, the one who took you from me. I was going to be less forgiving to him. When I first saw him, he knew something was wrong. He could sense me getting closer. I knocked him out with a single punch to the neck, taking out his airway and suffocating him till he collapsed. After that, I surgically cut a hole in his throat so he could breathe. I wanted this to last for long as possible. He choked up blood and started to wake. On the verge of death, it appeared he could see me. He knew who I was. But you were dead. He shuddered. He was so wrong. I cut his eyes out with him still screaming, then plunged the knife deep into his stomach, watching his intestines pour out onto the cold carpet floor. At least, I think it was cold. It was too drenched in blood for me to tell. I felt better after this, but still not complete. I was still missing something. It was you. I needed you. I would never be complete without you. So I set off for your house, whistling to myself along the way. I was happy for some reason. I knew nothing could stop me now as I drew closer. I felt happier and happier. You were surprised to see me. You cried, and I told you not to. You wouldn't stop, and I tied you up. I got angry. I shouted. I cut you. I put the necklace I made for you on, and you just screamed louder. I plunged the murder weapon that was used on me into your eyes, and from then on we were tied together in a permanent bond. No one would separate us. I was happy now. I could finally rest. This has all happened to me once before. In fact, more than once has someone taken me into their arms and told me that I was the best thing to ever happen to them. I find love. I find happiness. And someone's favourite everything. It makes me feel so warm, so wonderful, so beautiful. But it never lasts long enough. Once my shiny newness wears off, interest is lost and I begin being mistreated, and sometimes even abused. I tolerate this for a while. I was never very good at defending myself. I spend some time crying myself to sleep and contemplating what to do. What do I do when I'm stuck with the pain of being stuck with someone who doesn't love me anymore? I know when I'm just being kept around for sex. I may be many things, but I'm no fool. So the cycle begins. After thousands of tears and attempting to reason with him, my voice goes unheard, answered with a slap to the face, only making my knees weak and striking up my tears again. I stare at his eyes. There's nothing there but cold hatred. How? He used to love me so much. That was gone, long gone. Now it hurts too much to even try anymore. Not only was my heart breaking, but I was noticing the bruises from the abuse. I didn't want anyone to see that. I took out my compact mirror from my purse. 5 carved scratches were tallied in the upper right-hand corner of the magnifying portion. This wouldn't be the first time I made someone pay, and if men stayed the same, it probably wouldn't be the last. I would give him 3 days to change. 3 days, and that was it. I might as well get everything out of him that I can while it's still possible. I went to bed. This time, I wasn't crying. I was blissfully content. Day 1. Get out of bed! I was jolted awake by him yelling at me. Whatever happened to that gentle, "Wake up, honey"? I sat up for a minute. This had become routine. Bacon and eggs? I quietly asked. It didn't matter how much I wanted to sleep. Apparently, his appetite was far more important. No, pancakes, he retorted. He didn't used to be this grouchy. Yes, darling, I responded quietly. I wouldn't let my anger get the best of me. I could have easily just poured rat poison into his coffee. But no, that wouldn't be fun now, would it? After I gave him his breakfast and had a little for myself, we ate quietly. It was funny, really. It was like he thought I didn't know about all those other numbers in his phone. It was like he thought the minute I went to bed, we used to share. I was asleep. I could hear his half of the conversations, and I knew what happened. He was having an affair. He only kept me around for 3 reasons that I could count. I gave him sex, food, and whenever he had a shitty day, I was the dog he would kick so he would feel better. Why so quiet? He asked, almost startling me. No reason, I'm just tired. I lied. Lying to him had become far too easy. He took me for a dog, a dumb dog. Did he really think that he could bark orders and hurt me and expect me to remain so faithfully loyal? The day continued as normal. He went to work and I stayed at home. I stayed home and cleaned up and spent a while on the internet. I tried to watch things to make me happy, but nothing could save him now. Especially since the we and us parts I cherished in that relationship had simply crumbled away into dust. When he came home, we had an argument. It was about money. The petty bastard cared too much about money and not enough about what really mattered. I went to sleep on the couch. You could have the bed. The pillows reeked of his sweat anyway. Day 2. I didn't wake up to him shouting at me. I woke up first. It was still dark outside. I loved mornings like this. All was quiet aside from the few birds that, like I, woke before the sun rose. At least this would give me time to make Belgian waffles. It wasn't so much for him because, honestly, they were my favourite breakfast. I woke up first and honestly didn't give half a damn what he wanted. I readied the coffee pot and gave a little sigh, flipping through a magazine. Seriously, what kind of asshole gets his fiancée a subscription to Cosmopolitan? It was nothing but sex tips on what men really want. I was pretty sure that was a hint. I could only roll my eyes and close the magazine. Photoshop bimbos, all of them. He finally woke up without a word. He downed one waffle and only demanded another. None of that powdered sugar shit this time. Yes, dear. Any strength I once had clearly been beaten out of me by withstanding this relationship. It was Saturday, so it was clear that he wouldn't be working. He wouldn't be doing shit except ordering me around. A little smile started to tug at the corners of my lips. What's so funny? He was suspicious at this point. He had every reason to be. Nothing is funny. It's just such a beautiful morning. I'm so glad to be sharing it with you. I always lied to him at this point. If he could read my mind, he probably would have dropped me off at the loony bin and ran. I already had my plans. Flipping on the television, I watched the weather, giving a little sigh of comfort. I curled up in my robe while he continued to eat his breakfast. Tomorrow's forecast predicts a high 76 degrees and a low of 54. Southwest winds will be blowing about 10 miles per hour. Tomorrow will be a beautiful day too, especially for me. I spent the rest of the day being almost painfully cheerful. The bastard hadn't caught on, but, oh, he would. Honey? I piped up. What? He never so much responded as he did bark back. Rude fuck. Do you want to go for a little hike tomorrow? This was pretty common. I loved going for walks in the woods when the weather was nice enough. Sure, whatever, he mumbled back. He never really felt much enthusiasm for such a thing, but he did it anyway. I guess it was to keep him somewhat in shape. I knew he'd be hitting the gym lately, but I knew it definitely wasn't for me, that is, unless it was to prove to me that I made a decent punching bag. He'd already proven that well enough. After dinner, a simple dinner of chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese, I sat down to watch a movie on my computer. His phone rang. He picked up and marched off to the porch. It must have been whoever his new squeeze was. I hoped he would enjoy this conversation. It would be his last. I didn't go to sleep that night. I never do right before I'm going to text someone out. I stayed out watching a few slasher flicks. They were always so formulaic and predictable, but if I was in the right mood, I'd watch them in marathon. He always hated those. He might have seen it coming, but I don't think he did. Day 3. I made breakfast again. I was up all night, so I didn't have to worry about his abrasive screeching rattling me out of a peaceful sleep. I was making omelettes, dropping little chopped up pieces of ham into the still cooking egg, adding cheese, some onions, and a bit of green pepper. I would serve them topped with picante sauce. If he didn't wake me up and tell me what to make, he'd usually be okay with whatever I made. He might bitch, but he'd still eat it. I cut off a smaller portion for myself and made toast. The smell of the coffee brewing woke him up, and I was rather glad I didn't have to get his grouchy ass out of bed. Toast popped out of the toaster at the perfect time. I spread butter on all 4 slices, setting the table up just as he was letting out his loud morning fart. He came downstairs in a less than pristine state. He was often stinky and unwashed. What the fuck are these vegetables doing in my eggs? He'd already started yelling, and he'd been up for only 5 minutes. Because that's how I make them, I responded. I'd made omelettes many times. He knew what I put in them. I think he was just looking for an excuse to bitch. Well, who pays the bills here? You do, honey, I answered. I tried to put on my best guilty face. That's right. Now I'll go get cleaned up. Get ready. I want to take that walk fast and come home in time to watch that war movie so I can give back to Jack at work tomorrow. Okay, I smiled. He smiled back. It almost made me want to let him live, but it was such a false smile. It was void of genuine happiness. Anything he did for and with me now had no truthfulness to it. Grabbing the backpack I often took on hikes, I packed it with water and a small lunch for him and myself. Surely I would be hungry when the job was done. So both of those were for me. I rolled up the itchy blue blanket I used to sleep under and stuffed that in the bag. I checked my purse. There was my trusty hunting knife. I never hunted animals. I just didn't have the heart to hurt or kill something that didn't hurt me first. I slipped that into the lunch bag with my name written on it. I started digging through my clothes and I got ready, pulling on a short grey pair of shorts, a curve-hugging pink shirt, and a grey sweat jacket, mostly to cover the bruises on my arms. I pulled my hair back into a ponytail. I always hated when my hair would stick to the back of my neck. I hated it even more when I would get blood in it. Putting the thought aside, I put on my hiking shoes, pink and grey, fitting my favourite colour scheme. I brushed my teeth after he was out of the bathroom, drying off. He probably saw the bag I had packed, but he usually didn't dig around in it. He tended to trust my judgment when it came to what would be packed. It's funny how someone hurt me so much, trusted me so greatly. That would be his last mistake. After brushing my teeth, I applied makeup, a little bit of white eyeshadow, and then light grey for a smoky look. I added a light ring of black eyeliner around each eye and gave each eye a couple of sweeps with my mascara. I always wanted to look good when someone would spend their last moments with me. I painted my lips with a shade that was too light to be red, but too dark to be pink. Stepping out of the bathroom, I was ready. "What are you all dolled up for?" he asked, sounding almost disgusted. "I packed a blanket. I wanted to look good for you." I stepped a little closer to him and let him wrap his arms around me. Our lips met with a passionless kiss. I knew he wouldn't turn me down later. In fact, I was counting on it. The trek to my favourite spot in the woods was a rather long one. I found this beaten path a while back that was something like a thicket with a small divide, leading to what was a fairly large clearing. I spread the blanket. Digging in my lunch bag, I took out the hunting knife, sticking it in the back of my underwear for the time being. "Baby, are you coming?" Hell, I had to have fun with him one last time before I did the deed. He was there in a skinny minute. He usually was if it was sex or food. I already had my jacket and shirt put aside, stuffed in the bag. He always commented on what a sexy bitch I was when I was in nothing but a bra and my shorts. I always hated being called a bitch. I rested back on the blanket. I put my hands up above my head in a submissive pose. He always seemed to love when I did that. Dropping his pants, his penis was already erect. Straddling me, he began to grind between my legs. His erection started to ooze pre-cum, making a nasty mess out of my little grey shorts. Soon, my shorts and panties were soaked through, partially due to my own excitement. Really, who didn't enjoy getting teased? It was just a matter of seconds before he stripped me of my shorts and tugged the little black panties I wore aside, plunging his dick into the wet hole, fucking me. He held my arms above my head and kept burying himself inside. We were both panting and gasping for breath, and I even had trouble holding back a few pleasant moans. It wasn't too long until he was finished, launching a sticky white load inside of me. Those fucking birth control pills had better work. That would be good enough for a last time. After he was done, he didn't really care much if I was. He stood up to take a drink of water and was about to pull his pants back up. I want more, I murmured quietly. He paused for a minute. He never turned that down. He almost never cooperated with anything I said, unless it was that. In a matter of minutes, his dick, sloppily covered in my combined moisture and his cum, was erect again. About to push me onto my back, I shook my head. "No, lay down, it's my turn." He cooperated. Any excuse to be a lazy asshole, I suppose. Pulling my panties aside again, I started to ride his dick. I put up my sports bra so he could watch my breast bounce, mostly because I was sick of him being neglected. He started bucking his hips and I would grind down each time. There was no love here, but it still felt pretty good to get a fuck in. I brought the knife out of the back of my panties, only causing him to freeze. I trailed the tip between his pectoral muscles and down his abdomen, only bringing a few little beads of blood to the surface of the skin. He'd already seen some of the things I was into, so this didn't scare him so badly. I trailed my finger down the little line that was forming, licking off the blood. I stared into his eyes, and then I could see it. He looked a little scared. This only made me feel a small hint of victory. I started bouncing harder, my breath taking a leap each time I dropped. His shortness of breath only suggested his second finish was near. I wasn't about to let him have that. I plucked the knife up off the blanket. Before he could finish, I buried it inside his stomach and dragged it upward, cutting through muscle and sinew. Terror filled his eyes. Blood was starting to pour from the open wound. I could see his intestines at this point. I leaned over him, giving a soft little whisper. Bye-bye, baby. I'll see you in hell. He coughed blood, mixing with his spit. My tongue lapped that up during a sloppy French kiss I insisted on having. I saw the life slowly drain from his formerly lust-filled eyes. I looked to my bruised arms and my broken heart began to feel ever so slightly warm once again. I dismounted his dead cock, only repositioning my underwear to seem as proper as they could after they were so heavily soaked. I looked at my fiancé's lifeless body, only praying the ring off his finger. I couldn't ever so symbolically toss it in the nearby stream, but I think putting it off in the next time would be a wiser decision. I pulled down my bra, adjusting it back to a functioning position, and stuffed the ring between my breasts. Now, it was time for the really fun part. The body was still warm. I ran my fingers over the exposed intestines. They were so smooth and slimy, covered in such beautiful crimson. I couldn't help but lick my fingers. Some might say blood is an acquired taste, but I always licked my fingers if I'd pick them with a needle and whatnot. I loved the taste of blood. I began pulling the intestines from the corpse of my lover, yanking out the tubes and leaving them strewn about, unable to help but giggle. Oh, I only hoped he could see this in hell. I would saw through some of them with my trusty knife, just because I loved the feeling of doing so, tossing them about haphazardly. I've always been fascinated by how much of the tissue was crammed inside the human body. I just kept digging them out until I could see his spine. It gave me some sixth sense of satisfaction. Oh, what a mess my poor fiancé was now. What a pity. He used to be so handsome. He used to be everything I could ever want. Now, he was nothing. He was a pile of worthless flesh, left to the vultures and the animals. Now, he was just as worthless as he made me feel when he was still breathing. This warm blood, these squishy insides. That's what I equated love to feeling like. I had my fun for long enough. I didn't even need to worry about the cleanup. The wolves and bears out here would take care of that for me. All felt right now. As his corpse grew cold, I sighed. I had my fun. What a shame that couldn't have lasted any longer. I felt everything but remorse. But I knew a normal person should. One that hadn't been driven mad by abuse, that is. I took the bottle of water he had been drinking and washed the blood off my hands and ran some of the water over my left kneecap. It had gotten a little bit bloody due to the incline of the surface. As blood is like any other liquid, it flows. I licked off the knife and rinsed it with some water afterwards for good measure, packing everything except the blanket back in my bag. I put my shorts back on, despite their messy state. Digging in my pocket for the phone, I browsed through the pictures, leaving what would have been my future husband's cold husk behind that thicket of trees. I deleted all of them that showed him. That was far behind me now. I could finally be free of the pain. I could finally stop crying myself to sleep. I could enjoy a couple of days alone before I reported this. I scratched another little tally mark into my mirror. Number 6. I watched all the movies in the house, and both times I woke up from my nightly rest. I didn't need to worry about him screeching at me to make a meal. In fact, by now, his bones were probably picked clean by the carnivorous wildlife in the woods and the carrion birds. I figured it was about time to report him missing. I started thinking of the things in my life that hurt me the most. All of my past relationships. That was enough to trigger some waterworks. I called Chuck and Robert, his only friends I knew of, and asked them where he was and fed them some bullshit about a really bad argument. They both apologised, saying they hadn't seen him since work. I knew that, but they didn't need to know anything. Hello? Hello? I need to report my fiancé missing. How long has he been missing? He's been gone since Sunday around this time. Where was he going last? I don't know. He had a really bad argument, and none of his friends have seen him. I even called and I paused to sob a little bit. I even called his friends. I gave them a full description and everything they asked for over the phone, and went to the police office to file the same information so it could be given to the NCIC. After all, what kind of murderer would report their own victim missing? I sobbed weakly, as forced as it was, and one officer comforted me. I'm really sorry, ma'am. We'll get on this as soon as possible. Thank you, sir. I'm going to head home and make dinner, in case... My words stopped for a moment. In case he comes back home. I was given a look of pity. Exactly the reaction I was hoping for. Only some of his remains were found. Of course I cried and cried, bringing up the same feelings that the dead man had placed in my heart. The same feelings that made me kill him. His family paid for a small funeral and had what was left of him cremated. My parents took me back in, getting me back on my feet and helping me get a job. Everyone felt so sorry for me. It was nice to be the centre of attention for a little while. I started taking care of myself, moving into a small house with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. After about 8 months, I started getting close to a wonderful man. He has brown hair and blue eyes and the most charming smile I've ever seen. I love how tight he holds me and all of the jokes he tells. He's so smart and funny. I just hope he isn't number 7.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment below. All feedback, good or otherwise, is always appreciated. If you have any creepy stories of your own, or have any topics that you would like me to cover, feel free to send them in via any of my social media. You can find all links to my social media in the description below. Until next time guys, make sure you lock your doors, stay safe, and I'll see you next video.